Have you ever sat back and wondered why some people seem to move through life with an invisible cheat code? Why is it that certain individuals can walk into a room, command immediate respect, defuse a tense argument, or effortlessly convince others to do exactly what they want, all without ever raising their voice or breaking a smile? On the flip side, have you ever found yourself agreeing to a favor you swore you would never do, or buying a product you absolutely did not need, only to realize later that you were subtly steered into that decision? The truth is, you weren't just experiencing coincidence. You were on the receiving end of highly effective psychological engineering. Human behavior is not as random as we like to think. Our brains are hardwired with systemic flaws, cognitive biases, and predictable shortcuts that dictate how we react to the world around us. When you know how to trigger these shortcuts, you gain an almost unfair advantage in your social, professional, and personal life. Today, we are breaking down 8 scientifically proven psychological weapons that actually work, exploring the deep neurological reasons why they work, and showing you exactly how to execute them in real time. Number 1. The instant attentional anchor. Imagine you are standing in a crowded, noisy room. Music is blaring, dozens of conversations are happening simultaneously, and you are completely tuned out. Suddenly, from across the room, someone utters your name. Instantly, your ears perk up, your focus shifts, and your brain locks onto that specific sound. This is known in cognitive psychology as the cocktail party effect. Our brains possess an incredibly sophisticated evolutionary filter that constantly scans the environment for threats or highly relevant information. And out of all the acoustic stimuli in the entire universe, nothing is more deeply relevant to your ego than the sound of your own name. If you want to grab someone's undivided attention, command authority, or inject instant charisma into a mundane conversation, you must learn to weaponize this effect. When you are speaking to a client, a colleague, or someone you wish to admire, do not just speak at them. Strategically drop their name mid-sentence. For example, instead of saying, "What do you think about this proposal?" frame it as, "What do you think about this proposal, John?" Or, if you notice someone drifting away or losing interest while you speak, do not raise your voice. Simply pause, look them in the eye, and say their name at the beginning of your next point. The moment that sound hits their eardrums, an involuntary neurological spike occurs. Their brain instantly forces them out of their internal daydream, pulling them right back into the present moment with you. It signals respect, builds an immediate unconscious intimacy, and makes you appear profoundly persuasive and memorable. Number 2. The cognitive overload handoff. This is perhaps one of the most bizarre and hilarious quirks of the human brain, showcasing just how vulnerable we are when our minds are pushed to multitask. The human prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for high-level decision-making and conscious thought, has a very limited bandwidth. It can only handle a certain amount of information at one single time. When a person is deeply engrossed in a task like telling a highly emotional story, solving a complex problem, or debating a passionate topic, their conscious mind is operating at maximum capacity. This leaves their physical body operating almost entirely on autopilot. You can exploit this operational lag with a fascinating trick. If you need someone to help you carry a heavy box, hold a piece of trash, or take an item they would normally reject, do not ask them for permission. Instead, engage them in an intense, fast-paced conversation. Talk about something deeply stimulating or emotionally charged. Then, right in the middle of your sentence, naturally reach out and hand them the object. Because their conscious brain is completely occupied with processing the verbal narrative, their motor system will automatically take the object from your hand without any cognitive resistance. They won't ask questions, they won't even realize they are holding it until several seconds or even minutes later, when their brain finally catches up. It is a flawless demonstration of how physical compliance can be bypassed entirely through temporary mental distraction. Number 3. The Pavlovian memory anchor. Have you ever smelled a particular perfume or tasted a specific childhood meal and instantly found yourself flooded with vivid emotional memories from years ago? This happens because our olfactory and gustatory systems are hardwired directly into the hippocampus and amygdala, the emotional and memory centers of the brain. You can intentionally hijack this biological architecture to ace your next massive exam, job interview, or public presentation. This method is rooted deeply in the classic Pavlovian conditioning theory, where an unconditioned stimulus becomes linked with a specific response. To execute this, you need to find a highly distinct, unique flavor of chewing gum or a highly specific essential oil that you absolutely never use in your daily life. When you sit down for your intense study sessions, begin chewing that specific gum or applying that specific scent. Do this consistently every single time you review the material. What you are doing is creating a powerful neural bridge between the flavor stimulus and the complex information you are processing. Then, when the day of the big test or high-stakes meeting arrives, you introduce the exact same flavor or scent. The moment your brain registers that familiar chemical signature, it acts as a skeleton key for your memory, unlocking the specific neural pathways where that study data was stored. It bypasses the panic and brain fog often caused by high stress, allowing you to recall complex details with astonishing ease. Number 4. Identity-driven cognitive dissonance. Most people approach self-improvement entirely backwards. They try to change their actions in order to change who they are. They say, or if I force myself to go to the gym, I will become an athlete. But forcing behavioral change against your deeply ingrained self-image creates massive internal friction. In social psychology, there is a fundamental concept known as cognitive dissonance. This is the acute psychological discomfort a person experiences when their deeply held beliefs or identity do not align with their actual behavior. Human beings will go to extreme, irrational lengths just to avoid this discomfort. Therefore, if you want to permanently alter your behavior or break a destructive habit, you must use cognitive dissonance in reverse by changing your identity first. If you are a chronic shopaholic who desperately needs to save money, do not tell yourself that you are trying hard to stop buying things. Instead, drill a new identity into your mind. Constantly state to yourself, I am simply not the type of person who finds joy in materialistic shopping. It is just not who I am. Once your brain genuinely accepts this new identity marker, it will experience severe cognitive dissonance whenever you attempt to make an impulse purchase. To resolve that internal tension and keep your ego intact, your brain will subconsciously modify your desires and actions to perfectly align with your new identity. You stop fighting your habits, and instead your mind effortlessly automates the desired behavior for you. Number 5. The door-in-the-face negotiation strategy. In the world of persuasion and professional negotiation, there is a legendary technique that relies heavily on the psychological principle of perceptual contrast and social reciprocity. It is called the door-in-the-face technique. Imagine you need a favor from a friend, a discount from a vendor, or a specific concession from your boss. If you go straight to your actual target request, the likelihood of rejection is relatively high because the request stands alone. To guarantee success, you must intentionally set up a scenario where they slam the door in your face first. You begin by making a preliminary request that is completely unreasonable, excessively large, or highly inconvenient, but still within the realm of faint possibility. You know with absolute certainty that they will say no. The moment they reject your massive initial request, you pause, accept their refusal gracefully, and then immediately pivot to your second, much smaller request, which was your true objective all along. Two powerful psychological forces are now working heavily in your favor. First, due to the contrast effect, your second request appears incredibly small, cheap, and entirely reasonable compared to the massive first one. Second, human beings are socially conditioned to feel a sense of guilt when they reject someone. By lowering your demand, you are perceived as making a compromise. To match your concession and relieve their own social discomfort, the other person feels an overwhelming psychological pressure to say yes to your second proposal. Number 6. The exhaustion exploitation window. The human brain consumes an immense amount of energy, utilizing roughly 20% of the body's entire caloric intake just to power conscious thought, willpower, and critical analysis. Because ego depletion is a very real biological reality, our ability to resist influence, spot deception, and say no to requests diminishes drastically as our physical and mental energy levels plummet. If you ever find yourself needing to secure an agreement, an approval, or a signature from someone who is notoriously stubborn, highly analytical, or naturally defensive, you must pay strict attention to timing. Do not approach them in the morning when their mind is fresh, sharp, and fully armed to critique your ideas. Instead, wait for the exhaustion window. Approach them at the very end of a grueling workday, right before they leave the office, or during late-night hours when their cognitive reserves are completely spent. When the prefrontal cortex is mentally exhausted, it enters a conservation mode. It loses the processing power required to construct counter-arguments, question your motives, or engage in a prolonged debate. The brain naturally seeks the path of absolute least resistance just to end the interaction so it can rest. When you present your request during this critical window, they will far more easily default to a passive agreement, uttering a quick yes just to get you to leave and clear their schedule. Number 7. The chameleon mirroring effect. Deep within the human brain lies a specialized network of cells known as mirror neurons. These neurons are responsible for empathy, social learning, and emotional synchronization. From an evolutionary perspective, our ancestors survived by quickly identifying who belonged to their tribe and who was a dangerous outsider. We are genetically programmed to feel safe, validated, and deeply comfortable around individuals who look, talk, and move exactly like we do. You can consciously activate this tribal trust mechanism through a powerful technique known as the chameleon effect. When you are interacting with a stranger, a difficult boss, or someone you wish to win over, begin subtly and elegantly mirroring their physical behavior. If they lean back and cross their arms, wait a few seconds and then casually match that exact posture. If they speak with a slow, deliberate cadence, lower your own voice and match their tempo. If they use specific hand gestures or unique vocabulary phrases, subtly integrate those same gestures and words into your responses. The key here is absolute subtlety. If you are too obvious, they will perceive it as mockery and instantly shut down. But when done gracefully, their subconscious mind registers your identical movements and vocal patterns as a profound green light. They will experience an intense, unexplainable wave of familiarity and trust toward you, assuming that you share the same values and worldview, effectively dismantling their emotional defenses within minutes. Number 8. The neurological feedback nod. Communication is never just a one-way street. It is a continuous, dynamic feedback loop where physical movements heavily dictate psychological realities. One of the most subtle yet incredibly potent ways to steer another person's opinion and gain total agreement during a pitch or an argument is through the strategic use of head nodding. When we listen to someone speak, our bodies naturally want to synchronize with the speaker. In behavioral psychology, researchers discovered that if you actively and gently nod your head up and down while you are delivering a specific point, a proposal, or a perspective, something remarkable happens to the listener. The visual stimulus of your nodding triggers an involuntary micromimicry response in their own body. They will subconsciously begin nodding their head along with you. But the magic goes even deeper. Because of a psychological phenomenon called self-perception theory, the listener's brain monitors their own physical actions to determine what they believe. When their brain notices that their own head is nodding, it deduces, if I am nodding, I must agree with what this person is saying. By physically forcing the nod, you are literally hacking their cognitive loop, subtly swaying their internal opinion to align perfectly with your words before their conscious mind can even formulate an objection. As we wrap up today's deep dive, remember a fundamental truth. These 8 psychological tools possess immense power, and as the famous adage goes, with great power comes great responsibility. These frameworks are not designed to manipulate, harm, or exploit others maliciously. Instead, they are meant to help you navigate the highly complex world of human relationships, protect yourself from external manipulation, and communicate your ideas with maximum clarity and impact. Use them ethically. Observe the world around you with heightened awareness and watch how smoothly your social dynamics begin to shift. Which of these 8 psychological weapons are you planning to test out first in your daily life? Tell us your thoughts and experiences in the comments down below. If you found this deep dive valuable and want to keep unlocking the hidden mysteries of the human mind, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. This is Bite-Sized Psychology, bringing you deep psychological mastery in digestible portions. Thank you for watching, stay sharp, and we will see you in the next video.